Hey, how you doing, everybody? It's Bad Brad. And, the new digs and the amount of light that we have here, well, it's early morning, and I needed to shoot content. So we're going to call this the Garage series. And, back in the garage, all right? Now, I think one of the things that's wrong with music these days is there are no garage bands. And what do I mean by that? Well, there was recently, I think Sweetwater sponsored a video with, who's the YouTube guy with the backwards cap, and Jared Dines or something like that. And he'd got all these content creators, these musical content creators together. And, and put them in little challenges and had them form a band and all this kind of stuff. And what dawned on me by this was that these people, the modern generation, Gen Z, or, the Millennials, or whatever it is, they've spent so much time online creating their content solo by themselves that they hadn't experienced the joy of making music as a group. Now, when you work with a group, it's not always easy. There's compromise. I'd often thought when I was a kid that if I could just clone myself, get four of me, we could just conquer the world musically, because I was always 110% or 100% in. I was always focused like a laser, okay? And, it takes that to make it. Being in a band is difficult, and you're always going to have a weak link. I don't care if it's the greatest band in the world. There's always somebody that's lagging behind, or maybe had too much to drink that day, or any number of things, or age factors, or too young or too old, or maybe the guy's not, one guy doesn't look as good as the other, or doesn't fit in visually, or doesn't emit the same amount of energy live. It's very difficult to find four individuals, to conquer the world, to do what the Beatles did, to do what the Rolling Stones did. It's very difficult to do what Van Halen did and come up that way, playing the clubs and playing cover songs. I mean, Van Halen was essentially a cover band that started playing in backyards and worked their way up, playing biker bars out in, way out in California. And, which reminds me of a similar type place that I played when I first got started out there. Now, my good friend Al Morgenstern, he had kind of got me started kind of gigging, but not, gigging on the strip and doing all that stuff, which is, that's kind of something you graduate to. But, he booked me in this biker bar. I think it was called the Sundowner or something. And it was south of LA. I don't remember the area, but it was, it was just one of those little towns, and this was a tiny little bar, and we were booked like a daytime shift on a weekend. I mean, it was bizarre. And I can remember there being, playing, and I was playing at a very high level then, because I just got out of GIT, where I was practicing, all day, and I was singing, right? So I knew a lot of songs, and, Al would play bass, and we'd have a drummer, and I think maybe even Keith Howland, that ended up in Chicago. I think he might even have done a gig with us, but I know he's got some footage somewhere of one of these gigs. But, you know, coming up through, playing in garage bands. When I was a kid, we had my mom ran this restaurant in Colonial Williamsburg. And we had a building next door to the main restaurant that was called the Candle Shop. And it was a place where they used to make candles. So they would make candles and then sell them in the gift shop. This restaurant had like a gift shop. It was kind of like Cracker Barrel before Cracker Barrel, right? And so this candle shop kind of just sat there, and it was a concrete building, just like this block on block construction, which is kind of uncommon for Virginia. It seems like, Florida, you don't have crawl spaces. Tennessee, you have crawl spaces. But it was block on block with no drywall, just like this. And it had no heat or air. It had no bathroom, but it was 2 stories. It was actually big enough that you could put like it had an upstairs, full length with a tall enough ceiling, and it would make a nice place to live. It actually would. You could probably turn that into something really nice. But it was Spartan, extremely Spartan. No heat, no air, no drywall, no insulation, just concrete blocks. And it was called the Candle Shop. Well, when I started becoming of age to start a band, the Candle Shop became our hangout. That became where we played and where we practiced. And because you could pretty much go in there with that concrete block, just like this here, I can go in here and I can talk and not bother the rest of the people. And so we would be in there, during business hours of the restaurant, or sometimes even we'd go in there late at night. And that's when generally we would kind of get the, hey, you guys are going to have to shut it down. But, and it had a few windows. It had like these kind of like windows, and I think even a couple of them I had broken out playing baseball or something in the backyard. So there was cardboard over those. So I would tape it and put cardboard. And I had several bands that were, essentially it's a garage band. And that is where we learned how to play. That is where, we would sweat. In the summertime, man, we would sweat. And then in the wintertime, we would freeze. We'd be in there, and we had a kerosene heater, but, with no insulation, the heat kind of just dissipates, and you're left with the temperature. But, that was the proving ground. That was the place where you learn to compromise. You learn to work with others. You worked on, your show. And I had several bands that came through that. One of them was called Attic Black. And it was a name, it was a paint color back then. And Greg Trevarthen was the guy who came up with that name. And he was a little bit older than us. And he had seen us, we were these, maybe a year or 2 younger than him. And he had seen our band. He's like, I want to play in your band. And so he had come over and he said, let's call it Attic Black. And we used to play like Pink Floyd, Time, and we were kind of like a psychedelic band. But, a garage band. And, we would play Stones and we played Doors, and, we played Walsingham Academy, like one of the dances and stuff there. And in fact, somebody had posted a picture on Facebook. I'll see if I can't post that here of one of those gigs. But, we bared the elements. We hauled our own gear. I had the work van from the restaurant that we would schlep all our stuff in. And there would be a drum set there. The drummer would usually, drummers got it hard, man. They got that kit and it's breaking it down and it takes all this time and stuff. So the kit would always be up and we would leave everything set up, and I had a couple column, like PV column PA speakers that we would just turn onto us when we played live. And then when we practiced, we'd turn them towards us. And then when we played live, we just turn them out and we would play with no monitors. That's just how we did it back then. And, maybe that's why we, had such a powerful voice all those years playing in, hard rock bands. I have a loud voice. I don't have a ton of range, but I can cut through a mix. Doing that, being in that garage, sweating, being cold, learning how to work with others, learning how to, just honing your craft, putting in the hours. It's a big difference, standing up, playing, and what you can do as opposed to sitting in your room where you're comfortable and getting to do multiple takes and, the way the kids are doing it now. But I can't help but think, and watching that video, that Jared Dines video, where these people are like seemingly for the first time being in a band, and some of them look like they're in like their mid-20s or something. And I just thought, man, what a shame that that's how people are growing up these days, that they don't have that interaction with people. They're not getting together with finding like-minded souls and bonding with them and creating with them. Because whether you take that garage band to the top of the pop most, or whatever the Beatles used to say, take it straight to the top, whether you're doing that or you're just maybe playing the local prom, and maybe that's the only gig you ever do. You've learned valuable lessons by, doing that, by being in that room, by having your fights, having your arguments. Maybe one guy's the girlfriend starting to get in the way of the band or whatever. These are all valuable lessons that you could take into everyday life. The lessons that I'm giving out here, on this channel, this conversation we're having, because really, this is a conversation. I know in the comments, you guys are going to tell me about your garage bands and all that. Man, I absolutely love to hear it because it's inspiring. It's inspiring, like doing these videos, because, we're seeing how people are growing up now and how things are getting done. And, I felt bad for those kids. I felt bad that the fact that they had never really experienced being in a band. They had never really, because, look, the world is a lonely, lonely place. And having the camaraderie of your bandmates and going out there and schlepping your gear and putting in the work and sweating and being cold and rehearsing and learning songs and writing songs together. That is camaraderie, and that is a cure for the loneliness of the world. And when you go out and you play that gig, or you play that prom, or you play that biker bar, you could meet the love of your life. You could, or you could just meet the love of the week. I don't know, but it's better than swiping right on an app. And what are they? These like people that they just type WYD. What are you doing? WYD, HMO, HMU, LOL, LMAO. And all this, and then sending little emojis and stuff, man. That is a sad, sad existence. And there is nothing better than human contact, especially if you're young. If, we're old. So, my circle As you get older, your circle gets smaller and smaller. And, my wife is like, well, you've had all these friends in Nashville, but you don't hang out with them. And I'm like, I work with them. I work with them. And we laugh and yuck it up. We were laughing and yucking it up in the green room, and we were having the time of our lives. And we had a blast playing those gigs. But, when it's time to go home, it's time to go home. And your circle gets smaller in life the older you get. So if you're young and you're listening to this video, and I hope this channel, I've had a lot of people say, like my friend Paul, he said, man, I hope the young kids are watching these videos and learning something. And I said, it's really, this channel is a reflection in the mirror. It's a mirror reflection. And you listening to this video right now, you're exactly like me. I've had so many people reach out. Oh man, your story is so much like mine, and all this. And it's a beautiful thing to connect with all these people. And some of you guys out there have been, friends, from a long way back, or know some of the same people that I grew up with. And, I had a guy reach out to me, and he replaced Victor Wooten in the Busch Garden show, and had rewired one of Reggie's guitars. Reggie Wooten's guitar is orange Kramer with all these switches and all this stuff. And I just thought, and he found me by watching my videos on YouTube. That is just absolutely incredible. And can you imagine replacing Victor Wooten in a Busch Garden show, and you're now playing with the Wooten brothers? It's just, talk about some big shoes to fill. But you know what? Because he did that, because he didn't just swipe right, because he didn't just, I'm just going to create content in my room, he has that experience. He has the experience of doing it, of being it, and making those friendships and creating those timeless memories. And there is nothing more valuable than that.